I firmly believe that families are the foundation of society. And if we want to make the world a better place, we need to begin by strengthening families. Well, today I'm going to share my screen and I want to talk about a topic that can raise some concerns in some households. What does the word bedtime mean to you? When you hear that, are you thinking of a pleasant, calm time of day when you're bringing the day to closure and everyone is preparing for a good night's rest? That's not always the case in every household. For some, it's really a struggle, and it's real. Let me share the story of Susan and her husband, Bob, and see if you can identify with any parts of this story. They have 3 children. Matt is 7, Katie is 5, and Beth is 3. And they both work. They look forward to their evenings, hoping to have some quiet time to have a conversation or read or pursue their own interest. And they understand the importance of sleep. They know that for the age group their children are in, they need 10 to 13 hours of quality sleep to be able to function. They've learned from experience that when their children don't get that sleep that they need, they're cranky and irritable and difficult to deal with, and they're not happy. So they've determined that 7 o'clock is the right bedtime for their children. But as that time approaches, Susan can't help but begin to feel very anxious because of what typically happens. And sure enough, when she reminds her children that it's bedtime, 7-year-old Matt is in the middle of a project and he can't quit now. Katie insists she's not tired. She's not ready to go to bed. And little Beth is already actually overly tired, and she's just becoming unreasonable. So Susan persists. Her gentle reminders become more stern. Her voice gets a little louder, a little more insistent. And by 8:30, no one's actually started on their way to bed. Matt is still insisting he needs to wrap up what he's doing. Beth is begging for one more glass of water. Tempers are flaring. Susan is feeling exhausted. Bob's given up and is off working on something else. And Susan is feeling some real stress, some real panic. And she's using language with her children she promised herself she would never use, and a tone of voice she never wanted to use, but she is so stressed and frustrated. It's going on 10 o'clock. The house is finally quiet, but her hopes for a quiet evening, some time to herself, are gone. And even then, she doesn't know that she can really relax, because invariably, little Beth can wake up with a nightmare. There could still be Matt or Katie saying, "No, I need one more drink of water." And she knows that in the morning, when it comes time to wake them up and start the day, that they won't be ready. It'll be difficult. They'll be cranky. The routine starts over. The day ends in anger, frustration, stress, tears, and unhappiness. Can you relate to any of that? Have you experienced any of that in your home? Many families, young families are facing this. So let's talk about 6 steps you can take to change that bedtime battle into a much more pleasant evening. Well, first of all, we need to understand the struggle from both points of view. It's easy to understand how you feel as a parent. You feel frustrated, you're stressed. You know they need their sleep. You know you're going to pay for it the next morning if they don't get their sleep. And yet somehow they're just not cooperating with you. And you also need to take time to prepare to make it happen. You need to set the stage, get the environment right and conducive for sleep. It really helps to have a bedtime routine. And of course, you're going to need to ease them into it. And invariably, someone's going to get out of bed. Someone's going to have a nightmare. You need to know how to respond appropriately. So let's start with the first one, understanding the struggle from both points of view. As I said, you understand how you feel as a parent, and don't beat yourself up. This is perfectly natural. You are entitled to some time for yourself, and you do have a genuine concern about wanting to make sure your child's sleep needs are being met. Understand your child's point of view. They want attention from you. And if bedtime is the only time they get it, they're going to want that to last as long as possible. They don't understand their body's needs. They haven't learned yet to recognize when they're beginning to get tired and when they need to sleep. They don't understand their emotions. They have that fear of missing out. If they can hear the adults talking, something going on in the other room, they don't want to miss the party. And they may have some concerns about the dark. Maybe they have some fears about being alone in their bedroom. Maybe in their active imagination, there are monsters under the bed. Begin by understanding both points of view. In a comfortable, relaxing time, talk to your children about their concerns. Help them understand why they need to sleep, what's going on in a darkened room. And if it helps, get a nightlight. We'll talk more about that later. The truth is that you begin to prepare for bedtime really at the beginning of the day. A lot of parents feel they just want their children to be happy. They just want them to do what they want and have what they want. The reality is that children need structure. The most chaotic and dangerous environment for a child or anyone is one of chaos, when they don't know what to expect or what is expected of them. They need a routine that they can count on. They need to know when they're going to eat. When is it mealtime? They need to get plenty of exercise, especially outdoors. And they need to get a limited amount of screen time. We've studied the blue light in our electronic devices. It interferes with that neural functioning in our brains. It interferes with that sleep cycle. So having that daily routine, making sure they're getting their nutritional needs met, making sure they're getting that physical exercise, burning up that energy so they're ready to sleep when it's bedtime, making sure that they're not getting too much screen time, making sure that that's appropriate for their age. And if they're still taking a nap, making sure that the nap doesn't interfere with bedtime, maybe scheduling that earlier in the day. So prepare with a healthy daily routine for your child. And then set the stage. Scientists who studied sleep needs know all about sleep hygiene, about the best environment is a cool and darkened room and a quiet room. Now, I mentioned the nightlight. Sometimes that's helpful. Make sure that it's a dim light, that it's not using blue light, that it's white light and not that spectrum of light that interferes with sleep, with the sleep cycle. And make sure your mindset is right. You know, stress is contagious. If you're stressed, your children are going to feel that and they'll be stressed. Making sure that your mindset is calm The physical environment in the home is right. Set the stage so that it's inviting for sleep. And that means having an established bedtime. There should be a definite shift in the energy level of the home. This is not a time to be working on a construction project somewhere in the house. Any adults or older children who are staying up after the child's bedtime should be moving into quieter activities, reading. If they're talking, they're using low voices. It's a time for quiet. Prohibiting any screen time an hour before bedtime. And making sure that they get that precious one-to-one time throughout the day. When you pick them up from school, that's a good time to talk about how their day went. And then keeping that physical environment. This is a time to give the day closure. Talk about the highlights of the day and put the day to bed. And that's best done when you have a bedtime routine. This begins a half hour before bedtime. So at 6:30, not at 7, you're offering them one last helpful bedtime snack. Nothing sugary, nothing with caffeine, just a healthy snack to tide them over. If they're still using a bottle or breastfeeding, make that last feeding of the day ready to tank them up to keep them overnight. And then afterwards, they brush their teeth and get in their pajamas. As they get older, let them be an active participant in this. Maybe you're doing it for them when they're babies, but as they get older, they can do more for themselves. And anytime you have choice, there's greater buy-in. Let them pick which pajamas they wear. And with either a bedtime story or singing a song together, have that special bonding time that just puts the icing on the cake to end the day in a loving, happy way. And keep this bedtime consistent. It's tempting to let them sleep in on weekends, but anytime, have you ever had jet lag? Anytime you vary the routine by more than an hour, that impacts that sleep cycle. So remain consistent with this. In the best of all possible worlds, this would be something you started when they were an infant. But if it's something you're starting now, you'll want to ease them into it. Be in tune with their concerns, what they're ready for. Just make one change at a time. Maybe start with that bedtime snack, and then they brush their teeth after that, and try that for a while. You may find there's a time in the evening when they're ready, they're naturally getting sleepy, and maybe it's an hour or two later than it needs to be. But you can start the routine then, 20 minutes or so before that time, and then over time, gradually move it 15 minutes earlier until it's appropriate for their age. And the same thing as they get older and need less sleep, adjust that bedtime by 15-minute increments. Make one change at a time, give it time for them to become accustomed to it, and then introduce another change, maybe move it 15 minutes earlier. And maybe you need to stay in the room. Maybe they're in the habit of having you lay down by them in the bed. And you continue that, but after a while, move to sitting in a chair in the room, and then move to leaving the room for a few minutes and coming back before they start to get anxious. After a while, give them a teddy bear, some other plush toy that helps them to feel comfortable. Make incremental changes with the idea of teaching them that skill of training their brain how to go to sleep, how to get a good night's rest. Make adjustments as needed. If it's a stressful time, if it's you've just moved to a new neighborhood or you're starting a new school year, back off during those stressful times. And then make any adjustments to meet their sleep needs. The most important thing is keep this positive. Again, your mindset is everything. They need to know that you're happy and comfortable with this, and it is a fun and the right thing to do to take care of their bodies. Be in tune with their concerns, create a safe space for them to share if there is any fear of the dark, and adjust. Make sure you're managing your emotions. Maybe talk about what helps you prepare to sleep. So now you've followed this routine, you're easing them into it, you're remaining positive. What happens when they get out of bed? Let's talk about two situations. First, what if they get out of bed? They've been through the routine, they've gone to bed, you've left the room, you turn around and they're right out of their room again. You need to respond appropriately. Remember that any behavior you reward with attention will be repeated. You're reinforcing that behavior. And it's important how you respond is going to be very critical to your success with this process. It will be vital that you remain calm. If they're frightened, they've had a nightmare, of course you want to be comforting, but you need to remain consistent. If sometimes bedtime is 7 and other times it's ignored, they're not learning. They're not developing this habit. They're not learning proper sleep hygiene. When they have a nightmare, comfort them. And when the sobs subside, encourage them to go back to sleep. Use a nightlight if it helps. The most important thing is to keep it from becoming rewarding. Be as boring as possible. If they get out of bed, if you scold them, that's giving them attention just as much as if you give them sympathy and extra hugs and kisses and attention. So just remain boring. Just pick them up calmly, gently, and put them back in bed. If they get out of bed, pick them up again, put them back in bed. Remain calm as you consistently put them back in bed. Let them know this is the routine. This is what we're doing to take care of our bodies, to get the rest that we need. Now, if you've tried all of this and you're still feeling this frustration that none of it works, be aware that children who are neuroatypical, children with autism or ADHD, they may need professional care. Check with your pediatrician. There may be some neurological difficulties, nutritional difficulties. They may need some professional help. But for the majority of children, they can learn this routine. They can learn to develop these habits that will benefit them for the rest of their life. You're helping them start habits that will help them as adults, learning how to train your brain to get the best sleep possible. What a gift to give your child. Now, it's a challenge. Parenting is the only job you'll ever have that's 24/7 with no retirement. Even when your children are adults, you will still be involved in their lives, more as a mentor. But you're building this beautiful lifetime relationship that you can keep precious and nurturing. So let's do this together. We have groups within our Wise Family group. When you become a paid member, you'll see them. You'll have the opportunity to join them. We can support and encourage them. Through my business, I offer additional services to meet your specific concerns, and I welcome feedback. I would love to hear, is there a topic that you would like to hear addressed in one of our webinars? I urge you to email me, Emmalou at wisefamilygroup.com. And that information's on the dashboard, but email me if you want more information on the services I offer. If you want to make a suggestion for a future topic, please do so. I'd love to hear from you. So I would like to now open it up. Are there any questions? Please type them in. Yulan will read them and let's talk.
All right, thank you so much for that wonderful and informational webinar, Emmalou. So if anyone of our attendees would have any questions for you, please send them in. It's your perfect time to ask about tips and tricks and other questions that you need clarification on about sending your children to sleep. I remember, well, it's still, I am guilty about not being able to sleep on time still. And this webinar just basically highlighted the importance of taking care of my body and my health, even at this age, especially when we're growing up, because we need to help our bodies keep up with the stress of life. And it's important that we start the young ones as early as now. But yeah, so do you guys have any other questions? We'd be very, very interested. Just send them here.
And Yulan, I just wanted to make, that additional comment that, as adults, we probably need to think about our sleep habits as well. And again, remember, the most effective way you teach your children is through your example. Do they see you getting a good night's rest and exhibiting good sleep habits? We quite often underestimate the value of sleep. A good night's rest helps us recover from illness. It helps us think more clearly. It helps us manage our emotions much more effectively. It just is, you wouldn't miss a day without exercise and eating healthy foods. We need to make sure that we're also getting that healthy, restoring rest. When we know that's happening, when we wake up in the morning feeling invigorated and refreshed and just eager to start the day.
That's true, that's true. Like they always say, the children are always the reflection of their parents. So I also agree with you that parents should lead by example. Always. All right. So let me see if you got any more questions. There is one comment from the Wise Family Group. Let me see if I could just pull that up right now.
Okay, I hear you see a question about how can I help my child sleep through the night? He wakes up throughout the night. This is a real challenge. Sometimes if you have tried these things, you're putting them back in bed, you're encouraging them to go back to sleep, you're not giving them more attention when they wake up at night than you do during the day. Again, we need to be aware of that. Our children want our attention. They'll do anything to get our attention. And we may, even if we feel like, we're yelling at them, it's negative attention, it's still attention. So we need to consider when we give our children attention. Do we only give them attention when they misbehave? Now, if you've ruled that out, you're not making it rewarding. You're just reassuring them and encouraging them to go back to sleep. Check with your pediatrician. There are unique sleep challenges that will need some additional medical help. Check on that. and persevere, be consistent. If it gets too exhausting and there are two of you, you can spell each other off. But those are my recommendations for that one. And then another comment is, hi, I love the topic for this webinar because I've been having a hard time putting my child to sleep. So what happens is that my child throws tantrums when I take his iPad before bedtime. What can I do to make him understand? Oh, wow. Okay. It helps to know how old the child is. And understand too that electronic device, again, that blue light has addictive properties. It's very soothing to the brain. And that's one of the reasons it's, limiting the amount of time, making sure they have plenty of other much more active things to do. And just diverting them. And there may be a withdrawal period. There may be a real challenge as you make this change. Understanding their feelings at a time when they're calm, when they're not having a tantrum, talking about what's best for them, and remaining consistent. I understand there are some programs that allow you to set a timer on a device your child uses so that it automatically shuts off after a certain amount of time. Explore those options. If so, in that case, it's the iPad shut off. You're not the bad guy, but be aware of that screen time. And it's so tempting, because screen time keeps them amused, it keeps them happy. Why not hand your child an iPad when you want to be on a half-hour phone call? Just be aware of the effects and set some healthy guidelines for that.
All right, so we've got another question. It says, what a wonderful webinar. Are afternoon naps a necessity, or is it okay if my children do not have them?
They're not, and it depends on the child. They're not a necessity for every child. If they can get their sleep needs met during the night, that's ideal. But if you can tell midday, they're flagging, they're starting to get ornery, they're getting sleepy, then let them have that nap. But keep it morning or midday. Well, as an adult, I know I've learned if I take a nap after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going to sleep that night. So, we know too late in the afternoon really interferes with our sleep cycle. So if a nap is still required, they're not, they don't get all their sleep needs aren't met just at night. And for younger children, 2, 3 years old, quite often they do need a nap midday, but keep it midday.
All right, next question. My son is usually hyper before bedtime, although he takes a nap in the afternoon. I don't know what else I could do to help them get sleepy before bedtime.
Okay, well, I'm assuming you're making sure it's not too late in the afternoon and that he's had plenty of active time. Does he, making sure weather permitting outside, that sunshine is really healthy for children, making sure they have plenty of outdoor time, plenty of time to be really active. And then start, that half hour before bedtime, start shifting. Again, you can feel the energy level in a home. And if you're moving it to quieter, slower, more restful, maybe a longer story time, maybe playing a quiet game or singing, just shifting in to quieter, more relaxing activities. Might be a good time to just have him sit by you, hold him close, and just have that quiet talk, going over the highlights of the day. What was the best thing that happened to him that day? What did he like the most? What was his favorite thing? What was the hardest? And just, creating, of course, you want to anyway with your child. You want to develop that rapport and that trust. And so they can come to you. They know they can come to you when they have a problem. And maybe shifting to that, changing the gears. And this means if mom and dad are doing anything really active and noisy, that remodel of the bedroom may need to end a half hour at least before the children's bedtime. Noise, their children are sensitive to that. And, they don't want to miss out. They don't want to go to bed if they feel like there's something exciting still going on.
Your answer just made me think that that would be a great bonding time for your children and for the parents to just talk about their days before they go to bed. I feel like that's such a happy memory to have. So next question. Is it best to stay in the same room while creating bedtime routines, or should I teach my daughter to sleep on her own?
Well, this is you're easing them into it. Ideally, that's what you want, is they need to learn how to fall asleep on their own. And even babies can be taught to self-soothe. So if they can fall asleep on their own, that's great. But if you've developed that habit that they don't fall asleep unless you're laying by them on the bed, and some parents really enjoy that, but I would encourage you to gradually shift from that to good night, hug and kiss, and she goes and sleeps on her own. So this is when you would maybe start out, lay down with her. And then when she's, move to just sitting in a chair in the room. And then slowly disengage until she's learned. And, they also start learning, oh, I can do this. I can teach my brain how to go to sleep. I can control my body. It really is good for their self-esteem when they can learn to do this on their own.
All right, so next question. Love the webinar. I just have a concern because my kid wakes up hungry in the middle of the night sometimes. Is it okay to feed him a snack?
It might be good to look at what he eats during the day and what snack are you giving him before bedtime. Again, you don't want anything sugary or with caffeine in it, obviously. But is it nutritious enough? Maybe an apple would be more filling. The concern about giving them a snack in the middle of the night is, again, then the digestive system has to wake up and start working. If you can maybe make that bedtime snack a little heartier, have them eat a full apple and carrot sticks, something nutritious and filling that will help them sleep through the night. That would be my recommendation.
All right, so got another question. Do you have private sessions where we can discuss our personal concerns with our own families?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Email me at emmalou@wisefamilygroup.com. I would love to. We can schedule a call. We can share your concerns. I can explain the services I offer, and we can find a good match. Yes, you can do that.
All right, so the last question would be, how do you deal with a disgruntled child who is shouting and saying no?
Okay, now I'm assuming you're talking at bedtime, right? So that's because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so when you see that kind of behavior, you know that your child, and you might see it because they're overly tired. If bedtime has been delayed too long, they get, and the irony is they fight it all the more. They're resisting bedtime, like you said, by shouting with anger. So, but they need to shift out. Right now they're in their sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight reaction. And an effective way to shift from your sympathetic nervous system to your parasympathetic. Your parasympathetic net is the rest and relax, rest and digest. And we need both, of course. Is the fastest shift comes with deep breathing. If you can get them to start breathing deeply with you. Now, obviously, ironically, it's going to be the hardest time for you to remain calm, but you need to do so. As you remain calm and invite them to start breathing deeply with you, this makes that shift. They move out of that fight or flight into a calmer frame of mind. And you don't get them to move into a calmer frame of mind by scolding them, yelling back at them. It's remaining calm and encouraging. Let's breathe together. Okay, let's take a deep breath in and slowly, and just encourage them. Let's breathe with me. Breathe with me. And get them calm down. And then we're into the easing into it. Then you're deciding, if you're still just doing one change at a time, maybe it's invite them to look at a book, invite them to sit by you while they calm down. And then, understand that you know your child better than anyone else. Other people can make recommendations, but as you focus on what is in your child's best interest, you'll know, okay, he needs a little more time. Maybe he's not going to be in bed by 7. I'm going to give him 15 more minutes to calm down and then guide him to bed. When he's calm, he may be open to hear that he needs sleep. His body's tired and he needs sleep. Tell him that when he's in his sympathetic nervous system and he is going to argue and fight you to the death. No, he does not. So calm him down. Okay?
All right, so thank you so much for that. And I think that was our last question for the webinar. I personally learned a lot, and I think that there are some tips and tricks that I could incorporate as an adult, even if they were initially intended for children. I'd like to believe that it's still applicable even for other growing adults like me. All right, so if you don't have any other questions, I'm really glad that you guys got to enjoy this webinar with us, and I hope you learned as much as I did. If you have any more questions, you could reach out to Emmalou at Penrod@wisefamilygroup.com, and you could also visit our website at wisefamilygroup.com for more announcements on future webinars and for features that you'd also like to avail as exclusive members. All right. So again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emily. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.